Welcome back, everyone. 皆さん、お帰りなさい。今日は188日目です. It is day 188. Sorry, I have a bit of a nosebleed right now. Okay. Alright. So, we're one day after our second lesson day, right? Our second big day of level 18. And pretty sure now all 64 of these is from our previous one. Hey, hello there, Bree. Hello, hello. I am well today. My family had a visitor from Hong Kong, or at least I think she's staying in Hong Kong, and had to take care of a bunch of things. But overall, here I am. I have a bit of a nosebleed right now. Don't mind me. How are you? How was your day so far? I have an interesting story from today. So this person, it's related to language, so I'll share this. So this person uses, so it's not a very unknown secret, but I think it's safe to say that in general, the Chinese population tend to be very infatuated with at the Apple ecosystem. So they, have their iPads and their iPhones. My mother actually has an iPhone. So this person is like the communique or the friend whenever my mother travels, like overseas to Hong Kong. This would be the friend that takes care of most of the things. She is bilingual, right? She can speak English, and they've been a long time friend. So they happen to be visiting today. I am unaware of these things. I get up, in the middle of the day because my sleep schedule is completely shifted, and then I see the guests in the living room. So she wanted to arrange things in order. This is dealing with finances as well, because my parents are not new age financiers as well. So she talked to my mother about, oh yeah, you should visit more often. So they were talking about like frequent flyer miles, or like it's got sign up bonuses for credits, credit cards, and then traveling credit cards, and how you get like bonuses for spending. It's kind of a churning process, and I'm really well aware of this. Now, where does the language learning part comes in? Well, it turns out that the first time recently, like in the beginning of this year, my mother traveled, and I arranged most of the itinerary, but I didn't go with her, right? So we were communicating, and I was the middleman for my mother communication with this lady. But the problem is they don't have direct communication with each other, and it has to do with the Apple ecosystem and emails from a different system, but also in a different localization country situation. So my mother has a Chinese interfaced iPhone, right? You can change the iPhone to Zhongwen, which is in Mandarin, and I think they use simplified Chinese. So this person came and they were like, "Oh, I can't email your mother's. Like, what is your mother's email and stuff?" It's like, well, there should be a default email for Apple. It's called the iCloud, right? Or it has an iCloud handle on it. And she demonstrated in real time where she looked at her iPhone, sent a message, and tried to send it to my mother, and the phone is right next to each other. It's like, it's not going through. So I'm like, okay, well, but she was trying to explain it to me in English, what she wants me to do for my mother's iPhone so that they can communicate with each other. So she was describing these things. I'm like, okay, all right. And it's kind of humorous because I think there's still a bit of translation that they're doing, or it could be technology things. This is what happens, and this is how I feel when other people use tools but not understand necessarily out of habit Not that they have to, but what happens when you use a device that is incredibly streamlined to the point where when there is a hiccup, it's very difficult to explain the problem or the thing they want another person to do, right? So just trying to explain, oh yeah, I want your mother to get the bonus points and stuff. It's like, yeah, I know how to do all of that, but what is it that you want me to do in this situation? And they were describing, oh, just give me, I need a email address of your mother's site. You have the email address. Like, well, let me show you. Like, I send this and it doesn't get to your mother's email, right? Like, so something about whatever the Apple device's email address does not receive the email from this person's user. And it was soon identified that she has linked a third-party email address. Someone set it up for her to set up a third-party email address, a Yahoo account, to the Mail app of her iPhone. So it was not an Apple email, the baked-in Apple email address, and somehow that creates a problem. So instead, I described, it's like, so what if I created a Google account, link that to the app, the Mail app on my mother's phone, and then you use the Google account designation to mail to my mother's iPhone, so that then it is a Yahoo account interacting with a Google account in which both mail apps are managing their respective emails. And then it worked. Why is that the case? This is what happens when you have closed ecosystems, proprietaries, regional differences, and also when you're expressing someone. Like, I was standing there for like 30 minutes. I was thinking, okay. I see a simple solution. I got to make sure I know what she wants me to do. Because now I can handle my mom's inbox, my mother's inbox, because I am the controller as well on a third-party email account, which is linked to my mother's phone's mail app. And now I can like help her sort out her mail and stuff. I am the middleman. So now we have a form of communication where I can also communicate through that email between them two while they are sending things. So when that friend says things like, oh, I need you to arrange this, because my mother doesn't have the English in order to arrange complicated things. Like, how do I explain? I could kind of explain in brief terms what a startup bonus is and what the grace period is, but that involves reading buying text. Is she eligible for startups? And later I can set up a credit card that deals with a frequent mile, have her validate it while her friend wants to tell her about deals about traveling. Now here's the one thing that deals with Japanese/Chinese kind of thing. My mother's phone is in Mandarin, right? And I only know sufficient Mandarin. So here's an application that I feel I'm not entirely sure people engage in when they do language learning. My mother, the iPhone, has lots of terms that I don't know how to read. As in, like, I don't know the exact words that they're going for. But I know enough words that in that context, I know what I'm looking for to find the positional awareness and the icon and match it up and reconfirm it with the characters that I already know. So that's what I did. I looked at it, I'm like, okay. I look at it, that's a settings icon, and it looks like the word for settings. I click on settings, I scroll through, it's like, that looks like the mail icon, and next to it is the word mail. I click on it, and I'm like, okay. So Google doesn't have an English name, right? I mean, a Chinese name. So there has to be a Google account or a Google, like, a a Google icon or logo, I find that, and I sync a new Gmail account that I made to her phone while knowing broken, simple Chinese, right? Because all the stuff are very particular words, and they're not like necessarily common day words a lot of times. The kicker here is, how am I more successful or more likely to be able to do this when there's someone else who uses an iPhone every single day and they're bilingual, potentially in the language that the phone is in? You see what I mean? Like, this is where you get into that field where you can use a device and a tool. I'm saying that you don't have to do this. The nice thing is you have other people to do this, right? I am available. So that is why it's nice to have other people around. But the thought came to my mind is, what happened? Like, how can someone use a device as a daily driver who also has execution of both like the related languages necessary to create the task, and yet the person who has the least amount of it, the least experience when it comes to an iPhone ecosystem and the language itself would be able to do it in like 5 minutes? Now, that is something of priority, right? My mother and her friend, our family friend, they have other things they focus on. So that's kind of a way to illustrate that sometimes convenience can be very, very difficult to explain and do. Despite not having a lot of knowledge, having problem solving skills and critical thinking skills can elevate the knowledge you have. So despite having limited knowledge and limited experience, like literal experience, you can translate and transcribe a lot of your abilities laterally, right? Or yes, laterally. So I don't use an iPhone. I have actually, if I think about it, I don't think I've ever used an iPhone. Like, I have not owned an iPhone device in my entire life, right? I have an Android device, I have a Pixel, and the idea is, well, I know that modern app design or modern phone devices are similar. So I use that context in order to be able to navigate the iPhone when I couldn't even read more than 50% of the iPhone in a different language from my primary language. And what I was able to do was I was able to create a device, sync the device to a third-party account, and double troubleshoot receiving emails from different destinations, like different senders, without complete comprehension of the language, nor comprehension of the ecosystem at all. And that is my typical day. Like, whenever my parents approach me with a problem, it would be like they would understand like 30% of what they want to do, but they would be able to explain like 60 to 70% of what they want me to do, or what they think the thing is, and then I spend the other time figuring out that they only understand 30% of the situation, but I fill in 70% of it using a combination of English and Fujianese. They actually, our friend is from Hong Kong. They actually speak Cantonese. So in the living room and stuff, they're speaking Cantonese. Um, and my thought was she probably reads Cantonese, but even Cantonese is legible between Mandarin and Cantonese. So sure, there's like some things, but on an app, like on an iPhone, those words are not dramatically different. Like when you're reading Cantonese, like because it's more about the structure. In my opinion, like when I'm listening to them, it's hard for me nowadays to distinguish uh, various words, but certain words, when written, are very legible. And yeah, that's what my day was like today. And then I went out for a jog. And I came back, and that's it. That's my day. It's fascinating. Now, it's not important to her, right? Obviously, my mother and her family friends, they're over 60. They're enjoying life. I hope they're trying to enjoy life. So knowing these technicalities, I personally don't hold them responsible. But now let's think about all the things I've talked about since I started language learning with younger people, right? People who are in their 20s, or like 16-year-olds who are about to consider what they're going to do in the future. And what I hear is they do a various number of activities. And when I ask them about how they're doing it, why they're doing it, it comes off as I just do it because something says so. And I'm like, okay, do you know why it says so? Do you know how it says so? Does it sound accurate to you? And my first thought, and the thing is like, well, they don't know. It's like, because that's the right answer. That's their source. And my first thought was, well, do you ever question if the source that you're using either limits your experience or your wisdom or your potential for learning experience, or the idea that you could have a differing evaluation on something when you interact with another person, thing, or source, right? Another source. Nowadays, I like to think that in the future, there might be multiple like assistants, multiple tools, because I genuinely believed that when there used to be competition, people intuitively, consumers intuitively become interested in how the thing works, right? We live in an age that information and the way people interact with information and tools are monopolized. And that monopolizing thing leads to can create hyperpolarized behavior. And due to that, they can limit their experience entirely, or the inquisitive nature of people wanting to see how it differs. And in order for things to differ, when you compare and contrast, like, oh, is this method better than this method? You have to use both the methods. And then when you use both of the methods, they have to be considered as competitive products. And competitive in the manner that it challenges the person to compare and contrast. But nowadays, when someone says something is better than another thing, I can't wholeheartedly determine if they mean that's because someone said so, that's because someone convinced you that it is true, and you are operating on placebo, and then that convenience doesn't lead to a transformative and or translational critical thinking process, right? Like, for example, when someone sees two products, product A and product B, and someone says, oh, product A is better than product B. Now, the question I want to typically ask a person is like, okay, so what does product A do? What does product B do? Right? They have to determine what both things can do and what it can't do prior to comparing them, right? And oftentimes there's a loss of information already from that start. They will say what product A does, and they won't remember what product B does. But they will definitely remember what product B doesn't do and what product A, and don't remember what, or try to think of what product A does not do. And that is one of the first aspects of, are you learning something from doing the task, or are you using the task to learn something? And language learning, the thing that I stand behind when it comes to language learning is it forces one to learn how to use that information. But I have become humbled, and I had an incredibly sobering year and a half of interacting with language learners, that I realized that no, even app design was able to make it so that people learn the information. They don't learn how the information is obtained, why the information is obtained, and also what you could use that method to do. The reason why I say this now in front of WaniKani, while I'm doing WaniKani and Hanzahiro, is if you don't understand how the device is working, you're not comparing the apps. You're comparing the results. Japanese is still Japanese in the end of the day. And when someone says, oh, this device teaches you 2,000 kanji, and that device teaches you 1,000 kanji, this is better because it has more kanji, that is not evaluating the app. The app's that's content. The app design itself to give you that information is independent of its threshold of the results, because it is a learning app. Now, you could say a game is better than another game because this game has more content than the other game. And then we are talking about things that people can process. I'm not saying these people do not understand the difference. It's that learning apps get treated differently than games. When you ask someone, hey, which game do you like better, A or B? And they're like, oh, A just feels better. Like when you're playing, it gets you like that visceral feeling. I like the action and stuff. This is a turn-based game. I don't like the waiting. It feels. They're describing the process. So the games themselves, what is in the game, is the main focus. To me, I do the opposite, actually. Because when game mechanics come into play, they are rudimentarily iterations of each other. So what's most interesting to me is actually the content, because the content is some arbitrary projection of the developer, and the developer constantly changes. So that's interesting. The mechanics, not so much. Mechanics have foundations and things like that, right? And those are the things that I'm evaluating in the learning apps for WaniKani and Hanzahiro. So yesterday, I think Jazz said like he would write his own mnemonics, right? He would do it all on his own. And I'm like, yeah, that's great. Don't use an app that provides mnemonics for you, because you're not interested in the understanding the process of the language learning app. So when someone says, I suck at sentences, right? And they hate Duolingo for making you repeat sentences, that is hating the results or not liking fast results. It's not evaluating what it literally is doing. It's literally making you repeat the same sentences with different words over and over again. What is that drill for? It's for sentences. So when you evaluate, oh, but Duolingo doesn't have paragraphs, like that's very good. It usually doesn't have paragraphs. Like what Like, what does that do to the evaluation of the process? Well, if you say it's something that it doesn't have, and you're saying you're looking for that, then you're looking for the results of something it doesn't have, right? And then you go find something that has paragraphs, and then suddenly you're saying this thing is better in its app design because it includes paragraphs versus one that doesn't have paragraphs. That's not part of the app design. Unless they literally say, oh, silly me, Japanese have paragraphs. Dang it. We forgot to include paragraphs. Maybe we should include that next time. That would be a critical thinking skill that would be involved in doing the comparison. Did Duolingo forget to include paragraphs? The answer is probably no. They have a difference in design philosophy, right? Unless you truly believe that there are people who make language learning apps, who people, they have bilingual people as well, decided that, oh yeah, Japanese don't write in paragraphs, they only write in sentences, right? And that's kind of where I'm coming from this. Now, when someone says this is designed poorly, you know, the app is designed poorly, and the first thing that comes out of their mouth is like a 3 or 4 list of items that should be there based on their own opinions and experience, you have to start by demonstrating you understand what the intended design is first, right? You have to know what you're talking about first. Like, if you say, oh, this is bad because it doesn't have your favorite mechanic in the game, what are the mechanics in the game? Do you even know? Do you know, like, if you like it or not? Is it the very reason that you do not have they do not have the thing you want, does that prevent you from learning what is there? If you don't learn what is there, what are you comparing it to? That, in my opinion, is related to my experience that I had today, where I had zero experience with what this person wants me to do. I didn't set up the online account or email account on an iPhone. I had no idea where I even stashed it. And yes, it is not in the same place as the Pixel phone. Like, Android devices are laid out way different. In fact, my Android device isn't even laid out in the default setting. So, and in Apple, my mother has an older iPhone, which I need to consider this year updating for her. Right? She needs a earlier. I think iPhone now, the iOS is customizable, even the layouts and stuff. So it leads to me to wonder what happens to a person when their consistent environment suddenly just changes by a little. Do you just get lost? It's like you sit there and think, I don't know how to do this. So what do? You bring up Copilot and ChatGPT and ask them how to do it. I say this with a really big grain of salt, but I have to understand that this is probably going to be the social norm, right? And you want those things to be useful. Now, I don't know if they're going to replace me, for example, like replace me as a middleman, or replace me as a human being. But when someone says my AI or my device has my interest in mind, that is an oxymoron. They don't have feelings yet, at least, or they might give you the perception of feelings. The idea is, when someone says, I just want to set up an email so I can do this, and the solution that I came up with was most convenient to all of us, not the initial idea that she wanted, because I understood the context of her requests. And despite her inability to express that to me, like in an English, like a, like, like specifically enough, I was able to navigate it. You would want Copilot and ChatGPT to be able to do this, but hear me out. ChatGPT and Copilot, Gemini, they are an interface. So if you are unable to know how things work, how do you ask and express it to get the outcome or the information you want? And that is the final plug of this digression. There is some fundamental value to understanding how things work and how to express them. Because in the future, if you don't like talking to other humans, that's perfectly all right, I suppose. Like, if you don't like talking to me, you don't like how people can lie to you, or they don't know all the facts and whatnot, but they have emotions. They also have... You would like to believe the person you're asking has some form of problem solving and critical thinking skills. If they can't figure it out, they can help you together to figure out the solution. That's not the generation I interact with anymore. And I have to understand that. Even older people can have fields of examples of this, and this would be a great example. They use a device that they don't understand, but they don't necessarily have to be responsible for how it works. And because they don't understand how it works, you can't translate that to other devices of similar nature or compare and contrast in learning context. Language learning, to me, is like that. If you are unable to create a holistic way to intuit how to problem solve and figure out in your target language, then trying to work towards that as an idea of like, oh, I could use this as a device for everyday things. My language is the device I use. Now, in my opinion, at least in my experience, I don't often meet anyone who is not even close to my age or my generation where we didn't have these conveniences, and that's fine. Just understand that the younger you get, the more those conveniences also incentivize pushing off problem solving, critical thinking skills. And one of the things, if you want to do things yourself, like, I'm okay if you said, oh, I'm just learning the language for fun, and in the future I'll just use an auto translator so I can like kind of learn and kind of listen at the same time. That's a very realistic way of saying it. When you say you want to become a native fluent speaker who uses a target language every single day, and you use that target language in a manner that is involved in talking with other people, and you give me all the flags that you don't like talking to people, then that's swimming up creek, right? That's, or going down, going downstream without a paddle, or I don't know what the idiom is, but the idea is, it's pretty shocking how many people's goals are unrealistically, in my opinion, unrealistically aligned with their practices and their lifestyles. So if I had to take a TLDR on this, lots of times people are looking for a lifestyle change prior to even reaching their goal. Like, they are either looking forward to it or dreading the lifestyle change. When you're learning a language, you're saying you want to be fluent and not dependent on a device, and you want other people, you want to be talking with other people. Are you already talking with other people? Do you have the critical skills and problem solving skills to be involved in talking with other people? Like, to me, I think that is almost a deal breaker. if the first, like for me, I that's not even my goal. Like my goal is not to be a native Japanese speaker who speaks to Japanese people. That's not my goal. And I think I talk and use my target language already more often in my lifestyle choices than what I think is sufficient for me to be fluent in Japanese or Chinese. The question is now, what I just described, that interaction that I had with using simplified Chinese. I remember most of my simplified Chinese from Duolingo. And then that Duolingo simplified Chinese is corroborated with Hanzihiro, which I'm learning in traditional Chinese. And then I'm using my English and also my visual ability to recognize icons, because symbolism is universal, right? A lot of times it's universal thanks to monopolized designs. Like an Android phone and iOS, those are monopolized designs. So thankfully, because of the monopolized designs, they're very similar in many ways. And I understand that comparison. I understand how my phones correlate with certain functionality. And even then, that is not understanding what the actual phone actually works, like how it actually works, right? So I don't even have that level of depth. But it's still pretty weird to try to think that when someone has a problem, the first thing they do is they look for the exact identical problem. And if the exact identical problem does not present the exact solution, usually the person just stops there. Right? Like, I needed some help. So I did use Gemini in the process. I Googled, I'm like, so how do I express this? Okay, I have my task. I need to figure out syncing third-party app. And the thing I Googled was, can I sync a third-party email address to an iPhone? Because I need to know if I can or cannot do that. And it said yes. And it's like, well, how do I do that? And they showed me instructions for like an iPhone 16. I'm like, okay, but my mother's iPhone is 4 hours. Let's presume that the OS is still the same, right? I swear my Google Assistant activates on their own so often. Stop. Okay. And yeah, that, long story short, I'm not gonna belabor it too much because I have gotta get moving today, a little late in the start. But yeah, that is what that's some of the things that I did today. Lots of thinking. It was interesting. This was also when I just woke up. Huh. I wonder what it's gonna be like in the future. I think it demonstrates how convenience can erode the need for critical thinking or problem solving. Can you solve a simple discrepancy? What I would hear when if I ask a figurative 20-year-old right now, right, on the internet, can you solve this discrepancy? And the person would likely look at the problem and say, I think I can solve that. And then that's it. It ends there. Like, what do you mean you think you can solve that? It's like, oh, I can solve that. Do you mean you think you can? Do it. Explain it. And why and how. It's like, well, that's a simple thing to solve. It's not worth my time. I'm like, okay, what is worth your time? And in my opinion, the truth in reality is they aren't able to solve simple problems because they don't think it's worth their time ever. And then when it comes to harder problems and even more difficult problems, then it becomes too hard to want to solve them. So you default back to the first thing, find the solution. How does this impact mental health and other things? Well, eventually those small problems become big problems. So when someone like says, "Oh, you need to get up early, 10 minutes earlier than you usually do every single day," that becomes a very enormous problem, not a small problem or a trivial problem. So oftentimes I'm like, make it a game. How when someone says like, "Oh, how do you know you're having the best value purchase of a GPU?" Well, you could go on ChatGPT and ask, what is the cheapest GPU right now? Or what is the cheapest GPU? And they'll probably fetch or try to fetch the lowest, lowest price. Immediately, that would seem reasonable to someone, right? Reasonable. You type that, you say, okay, I trust this. I'm like, okay. First of all, you need a price history. So you might want to ask ChatGPT for price history. And then you might also want to ask, what does ChatGPT sample? Can ChatGPT sample inventory properly? Right? Because it might just include Amazon and Newegg or something. That's not everywhere, right? So there are so many critical thinking considerations, and you can get ChatGPT and Gemini to look for these things. The question is, do you have the capacity to prompt the information to happen? What AI is trying to do is trying to remove the need for these considerations, right? That doesn't mean you should stop doing these considerations, because something needs to oversee the person, the tool. The user has to oversee the tool. If the tool is bad, you have to know why and how it's bad in order to make it good, despite having to use the tool. Now, ChatGPT is built on a database that's very similar to Gemini, which is very similar to Copilot. So when you use all three of them, they may systematically perform the same hyper-objectified response. The question is, do you know those biases, those potential pitfalls, and are you asking the right questions? I don't think Socrates has ever been more relevant than these days now, where the tool you're interacting with is someone that is something that only responds to you. So your results vary based on the execution of the user's critical thinking skills, right? YouTubers try to circumvent that by being human. They talk about human things that they make stuff, but searching that is arbitrarily dreadful now, right? How do you optimize that? Well, you try to have AI build their database on that information, right? And yet, when someone asks me a question, it's not like a take on there are better questions or worse questions or stupid questions or good questions. The idea is, are the questions getting the answers you want? Are the questions showing the other person and asking the other person the thing that may be important to you? Like, you can ask ChatGPT, how do I get rich? And it will give you, a lot of great responses. Now, the question is, what does that even mean? What do you mean? How do I get rich? Is that where your starting point is? Okay, so ChatGPT gives you something, right? Maybe a side hustle advice. You look at that side hustle advice. Are you analyzing it critically and then asking something about the side hustle? Or you just read it and that's it? Like maybe the side hustle is become a dog sitter. All right. It's like, oh yeah, let's go and dog sit. And then the first thing you think, and it doesn't come to your mind, like, do you have people that own dogs around you? And then if you're gonna dog sit, what are your experiences with dog sitting? Do you own a dog yourself? Do you have the experience or qualification to own a dog? What is required to be a dog sitter? It's not to just go there and do the thing. There's a leap of logic everywhere in terms of how people ask questions and in how they express, right? If you talk to a stranger and you clearly see that this stranger spent multiple years of their lives chasing after a professional degree, and it's like literally in front center, and you just choose not to read it, you will still be ignorant of it, and as well not exercise the critical thinking skills necessary to come to some type of inference. So when someone says assume, or when they say they think or they believe, they really mean they assume, as opposed to they presume and they're looking to confirm and or evaluate the accuracy of their presumption. So when people offer advice, they say this is better than that, but what they're really saying is I had a better experience with this than that. You are not accurately and objectively telling the other person this will be better than the other. That is absolutely a huge leap of logic. But these tools make it that simple. It makes it that easy. And to me, I think those type of things are fundamental to being a thinker. So how does that make me feel, at least in my opinion? What does that make me worry about? Right? Not feeling about myself, but what does that make me worry about when the vast majority of people that I interact with, the ones that are willing to talk like that while trying to learn another language? To me, I think there's a lot of growing pains. However, I hope, in my opinion, that learning another language incentivize them to engage in critical thinking and problem solving skills. I don't think that happens as much as I think it does, much as I think it would. One of the most attractive ways to bring this all back to language learning, the most attractive ways of picking up a language later or adding a secondary language into like early education curriculum is that it may be something that interests a young person and or an older person, if you're still intellectually inquisitive, to engage in problem solving and critical thinking skills. That is my plug. I have a very hard time defending learning a target language if you're already functional with a primary language. I think monolingualism is sufficient. It may not be ideal or optimized according to my opponents of this hot take, but there is a diminished return if you have a primary language that functions sufficiently for your task. Now, I am a greedy person when it comes to skills. So I actually think, sure, I can say that having one language is sufficient, but having more than one language, engaging in more than one language is bonus. It's being greedy. It's doing more. It's bettering yourself. Now, what am I referring to though? I'm not referring to being fluent in the target language. I'm referring to having the opportunity to engage in something that will develop a skill that I thought, maybe it's still true to this day, that the vast majority of individuals who engage in learning something that they like, that is very difficult, arguably a lifetime investment, it keeps that person engaged in critical thinking and problem solving. Those are the skills, in my opinion. This is one of the skills that are absolutely, you don't have to be creative to know that, in my opinion, that you can critically think and problem solve about just about anything. If you look at something, there's probably a problem there, and if you think hard enough, there's probably something you can make better or different. And what I mean by better, I don't mean pragmatically better. I mean better for your use case. Like, not everyone's gonna like handles on their cup, right? Like, honestly, most of the time when I hold a cup, I actually hold it this way because I have more contact with the thing. So a lot of times I prefer a bottle like this, where my whole hand is attached to this, right? But that's not a problem that's pragmatic. It's a critical thinking thing. Like, if you observe, you use something like this more often, are you making the connection like, okay, then go buy something like this? When someone says, oh yeah, cups and handles make sense because most people use cups and handles, that's what ChatGPT will tell you, right? Um, in order to understand the nuance of your own self and your satisfaction, your mental health, your decision making, and all of that, it requires critical thinking and problem solving skills. When you become so reliant on something telling you all these things, then you don't need to practice any of that. In an ideal world for those people, I'm not saying you shouldn't live like that. It's up to you. That it's your prerogative. If you find that what I describe is inoffensive, like I want something to answer all my questions, I don't need to think about things, I'm already used to the way, that's fine by me. I like to think that the internet is large enough where you do not interact with someone like me, because it would be a point of consternation. It would be a conflict of interest. When you say something, be involved in it. Like, that's what I like to encourage. So if that's exhausting, you probably want to hang out with someone that doesn't like thinking about things. I think it's oxymoronic a bit, or maybe even a dash of long cognitive dissonance when someone comes up to me and says, oh, I research a lot, I study a lot, I know a lot of things, therefore I'm a thinker. I'm like, that's not true. You have to explain how you know a lot of those things. Why, where, when, in what way do you want to know those things? That's what a thinker is. A reader, maybe, is someone who takes information face value, perhaps, is someone who's learned. They are very learned, but they aren't certainly thinkers. And then there's also problem solving. I think I recently met someone who thinks that they're incredibly reliable for things, and the way they talk about how they solve things or provide advice, in my opinion, with all due respect, I think you think you're helpful. I think you think you're dependable because the people around you ask you for a result. You don't necessarily solve problems. You are the source of a result. They're not interested in you, nor do you solve things that are unsolvable. You happen to be useful. So yes, why do I say this? Because that same person probably feels like they don't want to engage with those people, because they only whenever they engage with those people, it seems like they only want something from you. It's like, well, yeah, that's true, because you're dispensable. You're more likely to be targeted by opportunists. Like, for example, what's the difference between someone who is dependable and someone who is respected? For example, this is it's a little mix of them, but more dependable, less so respectable, or expressionable. When someone asks you to do something, do you try in any way to explain to that person how it's done so that they can become independent? Or they don't just come to you to ask you for things, right? That is being dependable. If someone asks you, go get water, and you just get water, and that's it, then you're very dependable, right? You're a resource, it produces a result. That is how people interact with ChatGPT, Gemini, Copilot. You ask something, you search something, they give you the results. Those users do not learn anything. So when you're saying, I only care about the things I do, what I can do, and I'll make myself available and help other people, and the reason why I don't have a lot of friends or interact with a lot of people is because I don't want them to become dependent on me. Well, they don't. But if you don't do anything about it, you don't express anything, you don't even explain how you do those things, or even communicate with them on why they aren't able to do it, or find things that they ways in which they would prefer to do it themselves, then they aren't learning anything. And they are not learning anything about you. So that's what I used to be like. I'm not describing a hypothetical person. I'm describing when I was younger. I'm describing when I was like 18 years old to like 23. When someone asks me to do something, I just say yes. And I do it. That's it. I give them the results. There's no interaction. There's no expression of what I did. There's no attempt to endear myself or be instructive or advisory. I did get lucky when I was younger, though. I said yes a lot, and I continue to say yes because I got lucky in the sense that I was stubborn. I was very stubborn. I say yes regardless if it meant I'm dependable, but usually the word I would use is I was useful. And I stayed useful for long enough to acquire enough skills to say, hey, I've done this a lot. How about we do this together? And in the future, if I happen to like kick the bucket, right? You are able to do this yourself. So in the long run, what I have done now is I have spent most of my time empathizing with people and understanding the nature of why they need these things. And what I can do is not only can I present, or I try anyways, I try to present the results to them. So if someone says, yeah, I don't know how to solve this problem, and it seems like my email is not syncing with my phone, it's like, I don't know what to do either. Let's learn it together. And or I demonstrate it to the person. Oh, I remember doing this. How about, do you have some time? Let me, like, here, this is how I do it, but let me see what your thoughts about this. So this is where you do, and you're showing the person how to do the thing. And in that way, if you're not available, they might be able to do it, right? And also, they might be able to appreciate a little bit more about what you're doing for them, right? That is gone. That is completely absent in when people interact with an app. For example, a language learning app. When I ask someone, when they tell me, "Oh, this app's better," and I ask them, "In what way? What does it do for you?" Because it's not doing anything for me right now, obviously, because I haven't used it. Someone is telling me that it'll do things better for me. But first, I need to figure out what it's doing for them. And you probably saw this coming, but 8 out of 10 times, the person cites a result and not the process of what it does. They say, "Oh, I got to N3 with this app." It's like, that doesn't tell me what it does for you. Like, okay, so if I get to N3 with a different app, then they're no better than each other. They're the same. Like, what did it do that made you get to N3? And they're like, "Oh, it does this and this and this." Like, so you mean other apps can't do those things? Like, well, no, because this one does it better. But what you described didn't make it any better, right? Do you know the thing that it is doing that is strictly better for you? I don't even get there. It doesn't even get to that point, in my opinion, for most discussions. It doesn't get that far in where someone knows that it is the difference, like that truly difference that had of a similar process that was comparable. It's usually some result, and that result tells me, in my opinion, that they didn't learn anything about the process, like what the app actually did. They knew what the results were. So, yes, if your an ends justifies the means kind of situation, one is better than the other if it just produces better results. It's like, yeah, I agree. Does that make it a good advice for another person? No, absolutely not. At least in my opinion. Just like when I asked ChatGPT for something, I asked myself, okay, they gave me this information. Now, do I understand what that information actually means? If someone told me that there are 1,000 people, or like a 5% dropout rate of this app, what does that even mean? An internet expert, in my opinion, would try to say, "Oh, ChatGPT said there's a 5% dropout for this app, and there's a 10% dropout for this app. So therefore, the 5% is better than the 10% because there are less dropouts." What does that even mean? Do you know what that means? I can think of 3 or 4 ways that information can be used to back up extremely opposite arguments. For example, the thing with the lower dropout is easier. The thing with the higher dropout is harder. That's just the first step. Someone would say, "Well, yeah, of course. So therefore, the thing that has a lower dropout would be better." At what? It has a lower dropout and it's easier. But does easier translate to results that you're looking for? It's like, "Oh, I want to acquire more." Like, does easy lead to more retention or learning for you? You don't know that, because there, when someone says something is easy, it could also mean you learn less. And something that's hard, you learn more. Or something is hard, so people more likely drop out, so they don't learn anything at all, versus it's easy, so more people at least learn something. All of them are true, but that's not good enough. At least I don't think that's even good enough for understanding what does that data mean. So that's kind of what I'm talking about. a lot of times. I'm going to be talking about this when we talk about Phantom X later today. But that is the share for today. All right. Got 2 terms. Oh, there they are. So we have this one, of which I do not have any additional context for at the moment. Yeah, I don't think so. I'm drawing it at like a weird angle. Or writing. What was this? It was this one, right? Oh, Shuzai. Shuzai. This is covering an event. Yeah, I don't have anything. Nothing new. Other than Chutes and Ladders. The next one I did come up with something that a little bit more reliable for me. Eee, wobble wobble. Was it? Shoot. Show. So, this one, the shoe is fine. We have multiple instances of this. That's the show. And I think what I'm gonna say is the Prime Minister is what runs the show. Even though WaniKani uses show for something else. But they use show or show. But that's fine. We'll try to pivot. But the Prime Minister or the Minister runs the show is how I'm gonna remember the other thing until we come up with until we encounter the next minister, the next vocabulary for minister. Okay. There was also something on Hanzi Hero where someone posted a thread about like, oh, it would be nice to have this and this, and the first thing on the roadmap is the developers working on it, and it was posted like 4 months ago or like a year ago. Their mission statement was they're gonna do this, right? They're working on this, and that person requested that this be a thing for the app. It's like, no kidding, this would be desirable. It's a work in progress, right? So that's kind of one of those things where you didn't ask, the person didn't ask it in the form of question. They assumed that it was a deficiency. Like, what I mean is, oh, I think this would be a great idea. It's like, yes, all of us agree, and even the developer agrees. That's what they're working on. So it's like WaniKani, like someone coming up to me and it's like, man, I think WaniKani has I would spend most of my time making mnemonics. Don't use WaniKani. Right? Am I being unfair? I don't necessarily think I'm being unfair. I think this is where I draw the line for sufficient logic or sufficient awareness of leap of logic. When you ask something needs something, like need something, you need to know what they think you need or they need first in order to know, right? It's like telling someone go to Japan, that's the best way to learn a language, and the other person would probably aggressively say, are you gonna pay for it? Like, do you have enough, can you provide the funds for me? Like, do you have the solution to all the leaps of logic that you use as an offered advice for that. Right? And that is a fair retort or rebuttal, because the person who's providing the unsolicited advice, or the solicited advice perhaps, usually someone who provides a solicited advice, the person who's soliciting for that advice may provide that information, possibly even beforehand. But an unsolicited advisor, someone who goes around and thinks that they know better unsolicitedly, well, honestly, I'm gonna be really direct about this. When you're offering unsolicited advice, at minimum, indicate that your unsolicited advice is based on observation of that person, not some blanketed statement that makes presumptions that ultimately will make you sound like a poor advisor. Right? Usually unsolicited advice are often welcome when that other person who is offering the unsolicited advice has some knowledge in order for make that advice relevant. And generally speaking, that doesn't happen on the internet. It happens more so often unsolicited advice, right? This is for people who speak out compulsorily with the notion that they know enough. You hope they have enough critical thinking skills to know they know enough that when they speak as advice, not commentary. There is a difference between commentary. I think commentary is part of pleasantries. When they speak out to offer advice, they have enough critical thinking skills to know that there's sufficient data and observation that whatever they say would not be misconstrued as being presumptuously incorrect or trying to minimize it. One of the greatest, most common examples that I could offer when it comes to a red flag and a lack of critical thinking skills is when someone comes to someone's stream, know that they use a product, and presume that that's the only thing they do. It's probably the first red flag. Yeah, I call it a red flag, because largely then it's an uphill battle or an uphill way to offer any exchange in ideas. Because if you have someone who already makes a comment, who assumes that you belong to a group, which may be true, who already gambled that you belong to a group where what you see is the only things you do, then I'm already out of the game. We're already at a loss. Like, I don't ever assume that about someone else, right? So I ask them questions. It keeps me, at least honestly, it keeps me genuinely interested in the other person. And I hope that the other person is genuinely interested enough in expressing things to me. What does that do for me when someone actively answers my genuine curiosity questions? It tells me that they care about their lives, at least, because in order to express it accurately and in detail or interestingly, they would have to be interested in their own lives. So I typically ask questions most of the time. I think asking people's questions, evaluating how they, or like trying to vibe with how they explain things, really does pay back in dividends. So hopefully in the long run, the people around me will be likely more and more interested in their own lives, because in my opinion, if you want to be talking to me normally or regularly, you're gonna have to be interested in your own lives as well. And I would like to think my friends habitually have to, or else we don't stay friends, right? Have to be interested in their own lives in order to interact with me on a daily basis. if you don't get used to that process already, then we eventually drift apart. That's usually how that works. At least for me. So when you get an answer on ChatGPT, I want to know why you asked ChatGPT, and then how you use the information that you got from ChatGPT. It's actually very irrelevant what ChatGPT says, actually. I'm more interested in you, why the value of that information is important. It should be a detail in the things you share, right? Oh, today I learned this because I was interested in this, which led me to find this information, in which I use that information to discover this. And I say this not because other people who don't do this are disinteresting. I say this because I like when people think. I enjoy seeing and observing, interacting with the way people think. So it is a bit of a selfish request. Otherwise, it's fine. You can vibe along, vibe to life. When you vibe to life, the best thing I can do is engage in that same experience and vibe along with you. Then we just vibe without sharing something, and that can come with like sharing an experience together, right? Let's all learn something together at the same time. Let's play together. That's a way to remove the need for expression, but that doesn't come at the most convenient manner. People don't occupy the same space in the same time all the time, and they don't often occupy the same priorities. So communication skills are very excellent, and some critical thinking, problem solving ability is highly recommended in anything you engage in, be it WaniKani or what have you. All right, let's get into our stuff. So this is our new unit stuff, right? So let's take this a little bit slowly and keep track. It should go relatively okay. Okay. It's gone.
Maisu.
Maisu. Okay.
Kokuhaku.
Kokuhaku.
Monku.
Monku. Oh no, this is the weird one. Dang it. It's a writing paragraph. What's a writing paragraph? Like a phrase? Oops. Word. Oops. Why do you do this? Monku. So it's like a different unit of things. When you're writing a paragraph, it's a complaint. These characters here, like mon or bun, and any forms relating to word, paragraph, and like words, that stuff, I think in the future I want to come up with a different web design, like a different network for English, because I actually think that part can be more interesting. It can be a little bit more interesting to develop it with a bit more nuance, because referring to things like this as paragraph, for example, it creates a form of friction. And using this as writing is not sufficient enough. I think there is far enough basic nuance in common words that you can form something a little bit more involved and more interesting, in my opinion. I think it's true for both Chinese and Japanese. I haven't thought about how to organize all of it yet, so we'll come up to it. And then measuring words as well. We'll see what we come up with when I bit more learned. Probably. Yeah, complaint is gonna be a problem. Okay, that's not a problem. This might be shaku. Shaku.
汽船
Then. Oops. Ship should be fine.
禁止
禁止. Ne? Prohibition, I suppose. Oh, forbidden. Forbidden works. That should be forbidden.
禁煙
5枚
Wait. What?
不可欠
There was a typo somewhere in there. Got it. Oh no. It's like Ame Zo? Ne? No. Yeah, Zo. Q is definitely the last thing. I don't remember the middle. Ameza? Oh, because it's Zai. So, Amezai. Yeah, Amezaiku.
飴細工
Amezaiku.
Ijimeru
Ijimeru. What? Now, how do I action frustration? To frustrate? Team. Hmm. To bully.
座る
Yuaru.
教訓
Gyokun. Yes. Ooh, okay.
統合
The flip. Logo. Oh no. No, this isn't cool. Nodo.
喉
Gambler and fire. Oh.
訓練
Kunden. Dang it. I'm like, what are the. Oh, no, wait. I screwed up.
つながる
Oh, Tsunagaru. Uh,
書類
Sorry.
忘年会
Onenkai.
人類
Inui.
禁句
Inku. The heck is that? Oh. What is the onyomi for that? Oh.
広告
Kokoku. Oh no, Hanzuhiro introduced this at the same time. All I thought about was the Hanzuhiro mnemonic. Wouldn't it? They're both tied together now, which is kind of useful. Two birds with one stone, as they say.
口頭
Oto.
飴
Ame.
一等
Oh. What? What? Hmm.
星座
Is Oh, wait. Dang it. Oh. It's like something with Bill Murray. Ooh. Be moody. Oh. Something about Bill Murray. Hold up. Putting his head. Is it all? All be moody? No. Ah? No? Moody? Moody? Oh, Oh, K. K. No, okay. Yeah, K. Moody.
煙
I'm just like, oh, K. Murray. Yeah. Okay. That's fine. We'll get it. Oh. Hmm. You and me. Oh.
弓
You meet.
親類
人類
種類
種類
座禅
座禅 え
何枚
何枚
忘れる
売れる
喫煙
出演
記者
社 Wait. What? Okay. It doesn't require this.
口頭
Photo.
可能
no. Hmm.
叩く
Okay. Oh, wait. Pizzaten. Wait. Pizzaten.
喫茶店
Pizzaten. 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 Ne? Oh. Right, cafe. Equal. Un for equal. Un for equal. Keyboard.
等しい
Yoshi. Oops.
予告
Yokoku. What? Oh. Before.
弓道
Judo. Report or news. Report news. Hmm. We have a lot of report news stuff. Order from home.
かわいい
Kawaii.
Ginza
Ginza. What? I don't remember this.
分類
Gundri. Oh, I do. Hmm. Oh, it's normal.
禁じる
Kinjiru. Or not normal, but special. Kinjiru. This is related to something. How is it related to something? Oh,
告げる
it is. Permit. I got stuck on this twice yesterday. Permit. can only it was like you can only say some permit to say something at noon and only because of yes.
Zendera.
Zendera.
Kunyomi.
Kunyomi. I think it's an apostrophe, not a hyphen. Okay.
Kokuen.
Kokuen.
Jinshu.
Jinshu.
Keikoku.
Keikoku. Warning announcement? No. Yes. No. Warning. Yeah. Okay.
Mai.
I. Oh no. Oh.
座席。
座席。
対等。
対等 or equal. Fine. All right, that's it. We embellished a little, some digressions, about a story. Today was supposed to be a short session. How about tomorrow? I'm probably gonna try to do it before 6 tomorrow, actually. So that would mean it would leave. Yeah, we're fine. We're gonna get back on track tomorrow. Provided I don't yap too much this evening. Let's see. Monix. Long ago, gambler, previous, mask. Happiness, conflict, treasure chest, and noon. Okay. Tattoo. Home. Shack. Yankee. Centaur. Money. Nostradamus. Soul. Little to Kyoto. Saber. Okay. Goritz. It's not easy. Kun. You. Boku. Shu. Atsu. Rui. O. To. Ki. Shaku. Ya. Za. Bo. Zen. Mune. No. So. Zen. Ha. Kyo. Mai. Se. Ku. Kin. Kitsu. En. O. O. Ame. Ame. All right. That's it for WaniKani today. Gonna watch this later. Arigatou gozaimasu. Right. Feel free to follow along. Go WaniKani for yourself. Always welcome. Drop on by. Change some questions, ideas, and stories. Always free to yap. Right. Yap. Grow from each other. Share vicarious experiences. Brainstorm. What have you. Until next time. For those who are only interested in WaniKani, minasan mata ne. I'll see you guys next time. I want to get up, stretch, walk around a bit, and I'll be back for Hanzo Hero. Thank you, thank you.